All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of council and administration, those that are here in the gallery and following online. Mayor Choi and Deputy Mayor Hansard are unavailable to join us today, but have sent their regrets. As the previous Deputy Mayor, I'm happy to chair our meeting this afternoon, and we'll call our regular council meeting for May 26, 2025 to order. Looking to members of council, we have an agenda in front of us this evening. I'll look to Councillor Palechko with the motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. That Town Council adopt the May 26, 2025 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you, sir. I'll look to administration. Anything to add to the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Nothing to add this evening.
Thank you. Members of council, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Next item on our agenda is the public input session, the time that residents are able to speak to council about anything that is not on the current agenda. Administration, is anyone registered to speak this afternoon?
Through Councillor Anderson, no one has registered.
Thank you. Anyone in the gallery present that would like to speak to council regarding anything that is not on the agenda this afternoon? And with that, we will move on. Item 4.0, presentations and delegations. We have nothing scheduled this afternoon. And for item 5.0, we do not have a statutory public hearing this evening either, which moves us down to item 6, the adoption of council minutes, and specifically for January 9th. And I will look to Councillor Loynes for the motion here, please.
The Town Council approved the May 12th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. Members of council, we've had the opportunity to read and review the meeting minutes. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries as well. Moving down, item 7. We have 3 sets of minutes, one from each of the Cultural and Tourism Roundtable, the Tri-Municipal Leisure Facility Corporation Board, and the Planning Advisory Committee. I'll look to members of council. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes that are before us? Okay. Seeing none there, I will look to Councillor Meyer for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Town Council received the Council and Board and Committee minutes for information.
All right. Any discussion or debate from council? All right. Seeing none, we'll call that to question. All in favor? And that carries as well. Moving right along, we have 3 bylaws scheduled this evening. The first item is 8.1, the amending fees and charges bylaw, and we'll look to administration for that presentation, please.
Thank you and good evening, Council. This evening, we will review proposed amendments regarding the 2025 solid waste fees. Fee revisions proposed are calculated based on an effective date of July 2025, of which residents will see on their August billing. There are 2 main contributors initiating the review of the solid waste fees for 2025. The first is the extended producer responsibility, known as EPR, and the second, a newly signed solid waste contract. On October 28, 2024, Council received a presentation and made a motion to approve the town's participation in the EPR program. This program came into effect on April 1st, 2025, as the town entered into a contract resulting in savings of $4.04 per month per residential pickup. The total savings of approximately $200,000 for 2025 equates to savings for residential pickup of $6.06 per month effective July 2025. The town is committed to passing along the entire savings of the program to those paying for residential pickup. Effective May 1st, 2025, the town entered into a new contract with a new solid waste contractor. As a result of this change in contractor, the solid waste budget will be reduced by $250,000. The full amount of these savings are also proposed to be passed on to the users of all classes, including residential, seniors, and apartments. As per the solid waste utility model, the result of these savings equates to a 23% reduction in all classifications. Final annualized 4 months of savings in the budget will be realized in 2026 and reflected in the 2026 user fees and charges bylaw. Combined rate reductions per solid waste class is viewed on the screen, distributing the full $450,000 combined savings. This includes the $6.06, or 19.7% savings for residential, plus the 23% reduction across the board. This equates to a rate reduction of 42.7% to residential and 23% on seniors and apartments. Next steps in implementation after the amending bylaw is approved will be to revise the rates effective July 1st, which will show on the August billing. Communication on updated rates will be provided through monthly billing, social media, and newspaper. On the screen are the proposed motions before Council this evening to implement the solid waste savings and provide back to residents through reduction of solid waste rates. Thank you.
Thank you to administration. Always great when we can talk about savings for residents. So appreciate this coming forward this evening. I'll look to members of council and open the floor for questions specific to clarity or understanding. Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, fantastic to see this. We kind of knew it was coming, but it's great to see this finally coming into chambers, and I think our residents are going to be very happy when they hear about and see this change. Question that I have, though, is notice on the slide that had the chart that broke down the rates, we have that change where apartments and seniors only receive a 23% savings. I'm assuming right now that is because they previously did not receive recycling services and so on, so they would not qualify for the savings from the EPR. Would that be correct?
Thank you through you, Councillor Anderson, to Councillor Laurie and all of Council. That is correct. The residential is the only one where the rebate is applicable. The other classifications did not have that pickup.
Excellent, thank you, and if I may? Yep. Just as a follow-on to that then, so aside from the Rotary Recycling Centre that we have, do we have any options, or are there any options that we can explore to provide recycling services, recycling collection to residents who reside in apartment buildings?
Thank you through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Laurie and all of Council. That is something I'll have to defer to our GM of P&I.
Sorry, I can certainly, excuse me, Councillor Anderson, I can speak a bit to that. So, I mean, the first answer I'd say is yes, that can be done, and we have explored it in the past. It wasn't specifically explored going into this particular process being brought forward into the chambers.
Thank you, and then one last question on that. Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. As I mentioned, we do have the Rotary Recycling Centre that is available for residents, all residents to use, and particularly would be usable for those in apartments and so on and so forth. What part of our budget pays for the operation expense and the collection at the Rotary Recycling Centre if it's not included in the solid waste fees that are paid, or sorry, in the recycling fees that were paid through our municipal utility bills?
Thank you through you, Councillor Anderson, to Councillor Laurie and all of Council. The total cost of the recycle center is put into the entire solid waste model that is distributed amongst all of the classes.
See a follow-up there.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and I'm just kind of going through this in my head. So in theory, if that is applied to the municipal utility bills and is collected through that, would there not then be a portion of the EPR savings that would be applicable to the seniors and the apartments?
Thank you through you, Councillor Anderson, to Councillor Laurie, and all of council. So the rate that was stated in the presentation is the $4.04, which is what was signed in the contract per residential pickup. That's not including the recycle center. So there is some savings from the recycle center that there are a lot of rules and regulations that I don't have all the knowledge on this, but basically depending if it's fenced, still depending if it's surveyed or surveillance, et cetera, on whether or not and what tier of rebate you get from a recycle center. And so at this time, there's not a lot of savings on that. There is a small portion of savings. We're still trying to understand that and see how it'll be realized, and then we will have that effective across all of the classifications for 2026.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And very interested to hear that there are those certain classifications for the recycle center, and I'm sure our administration is working very hard on what possible changes we might be able to make sure we maximize on those savings. And then, yes, I appreciate the understanding then that as those savings are realized, as we go through to the next budget season, that we'll see those savings across the board to all residents through that portion. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Any other questions for clarity and understanding from council? Okay, seeing none, I do have a couple of questions myself. Looking at page 29 of our agenda package, this is under additional fees. Not a math guy, but what I read here is each additional organics cart for residential lots greater than 2 hectares. And then in brackets, it appears that 2 hectares is being defined as 0.5 acres, but I believe 2 hectares is probably closer to 4.5 acres. So just looking for some clarity or potentially a typo there.
Thank you, through you, Councillor Anderson. It looks as though that is an administrative error. It should be 0.2 hectares is equivalent to 0.5 acres, and that's something that I think we can do a friendly amendment on.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to look to Ledge Services and the administration on the other side. Do we need a motion on this one, considering we're going to go through all 3 readings potentially this evening?
Thank you, through to Justin, Councillor Anderson. That's an administrative adjustment we can make on our end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Looking to council a second time. Any additional questions? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask this, because we do hear about it frequently from residents. And so because we are talking about a change to our solid waste management billing, I will ask the question that we get asked all the time. Will there be a consideration coming forward from administration at some point in time for the ability for a resident to select a different sized disposal container, either a larger waste container or a smaller waste container than the standard one that has been provided?
I appreciate that question, Councillor Laurie, and if I may just add on, or an additional container. So we'll look to administration there.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Anderson, through to Councillor Laurie and the rest of council. So short answer is yes. We were looking to and needing to transact this aspect in advance as the billing timelines that our Manager of Financial Services outlined. So we were needing to transact this side of it, but still have the intent to bring forward some options for council to consider in the current year, and would expect to be able to do that prior to or during the July council meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm sure our residents will be as well. I think we all expected it was just a matter of patience and timing, and so I'm glad to hear that that's in the works, and we'll see it in the coming months.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie, and if I may, once this particular item is dealt with, I would suggest that there's an opportunity there for a motion to come forward to ask administration to come back with that report for options for residents before we carry on with the rest of the agenda. Looking to Councillor Loynes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Just a quick question to administration. When it talks about cart replacement, had a resident reach out to me recently about the brand new garbage can they just received that was damaged upon its second pickup due to the aggression of the garbage truck picking it up. And I'm curious if in situations where there is video evidence, because everybody has doorbell cameras now, that if that is the case, is that resident still responsible for the $105 to replace a broken cart? Or is that something that we take up with our garbage company?
Administration.
Thank you for the question. So I can speak a bit about car replacements. It does come up from time to time. I don't know that we do, a crazy amount. I don't think we do 100 of those a year, but we do have a few for sure. Typically, we would ask that the resident just contact us directly over at the operations or frankly, any one of our phone numbers that they can track us down. What I've seen in the past, it's rare that we will charge the amount as indicated here. Most often, when we get a chance to, hear the resident, listen to the situation, so to speak, or even go out on site and take a look at what's been broken or how it was broken, our staff can fairly simply and easily ascertain that it's either in a wear and tear issue or some sort of malfunction on the end of the contractor. And a special comment there would just be, I think we tend to see a handful of broken wheels when it gets really cold in the winter, just from contact back down. So in that event, we just ask that the residents contact us, and our staff will typically either come out and fix it on site if they can. If not, we'll just replace it and go about our business, so to speak. There will be one or two a year, perhaps, where the only ones that I've heard of in my time is sometimes our staff can tell if they're split down both sides. It's often from a vehicle pushing it into a garage wall or something. So we will, from rarely, but it does happen, where we will charge when we're pretty sure it was not just regular wear and tear.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Lyons. Is there a follow-up or any commentary there? Okay, thank you. Looking for a third time, side to side. Members of council, questions for clarity and understanding? Okay, I'm going to look to Councillor Meyer. Before I ask for the motion here, neglected to mention at the beginning, administration is looking for 3 readings of the bylaw this evening, so that's just clarity to the public. And so I'll look to Councillor Laurie for the motion, please, on the first reading.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. I'm very happy to move the Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2725/G/25, a bylaw to amend fees and charges bylaw 2709/G/24 to amend solid waste fees.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Looking to council, are there any debate or discussion on first reading? Okay, seeing none for me either, so I'll call to question for first reading. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you for that. We will move right on to second reading. Before we call the motion, are there any additional questions for clarity and understanding? Okay, thank you. I will turn to Councillor Plechko. With only 5 of us here this evening, we're going to go through everybody a couple of times, I think. Councillor Plechko with the motion for second reading, please.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. The Town Council gives second reading to bylaw 2725/G/25.
Thank you, Councillor Plechko. The floor is open for discussion and debate on second reading. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question for second reading. All in favor? And that carries. For the members of the public that may be watching, a proposed bylaw must not have more than 2 readings at a council meeting unless the councillors present give unanimous consent to consider third reading. And I will look to Councillor Lyons, please, for the motion for unanimous consent.
The Town Council give unanimous consent to consider the third reading of bylaw 2725/G/25.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question for unanimous consent. All in favor? And that carries, which takes us right to third reading. Before we call the question, are there any final questions for clarity or understanding? Okay. Councillor Meyer with the motion for third reading, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2725/G/25.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Floor is open for a third time for debate and discussion. All right, seeing none. Thank you to administration for bringing this one forward. I know there's a lot of work that goes into our waste contracts and such, and being able to provide a cost savings to the resident is always appreciated. And so we thank you for the time, energy, and effort that's gone into bringing this forward. And with that, I will call the question for third reading. All in favor? And that carries. All right, that will take us to item 8.2, our second bylaw of the evening, the responsible pet ownership bylaw. And we'll turn this back over to administration for your presentation.
Thank you and good evening. I'm here to deliver the presentation on the proposed responsible pet ownership bylaw. We are bringing this document forward for first reading tonight. The desired outcomes of the review were to present an updated bylaw, which is clear and easy to navigate, fair, reasonable, and enforceable, modernized and responsive, and to assure alignment with similar bylaws in the metro region to heighten enforcement consistency and public expectation as they move through community to community. Administration conducted reviews on bylaws from across the metro region. We reviewed current legislation related to the bylaw, as well as a review of proposed amendments by impacted department, which included the Planning and Infrastructure and Legislative Services. The recommended amendments include formatting for consistency with current bylaw formatting, movement of sections for clarity and to ease finding of information, reflection of enforcement actions consistent with peer communities, and adjustment of fine amounts to align Stony Plain in the middle of the charge range, updated language and definition additions to respond to current terminologies and current community uses, removal of non-domesticated animals from the bylaw, removal of annual licensing fees for animals not deemed vicious or nuisance. There is still a requirement for an animal to display an identification tag with contact information. This amendment strives to reunite pets and their owners faster.
All right, thank you for the presentation and our second proposed bylaw this evening that looks to extend cost savings to some residents, which is great to see. I will look to members of council. We'll open the floor here for questions specific to clarity and understanding on the bylaw that has been presented to us. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Just for clarification, when it comes to nuisance pets such as cats that tend to be let out every day, all day, multiple days in a row, typically they're not registered. Typically, we don't have a way of tracking them. What is the procedure for those animals those cats in particular that are being picked up or being pains to the other neighbors?
To administration.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Anderson, to Councillor Loynes, and to the rest of council. Our current bylaw does permit our peace officers to deem an animal a nuisance animal. That is determined through reviews of frequent occurrences. This updated bylaw will include fines for animals that are nuisance animals that are not responding to the regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. We'll look to Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at the track changes version, page 51, section, it is now section 8. In specific, questions around section would be 8.1.0 and 8.2.0. So the changes that we see is 8.1 has now been changed to simply state the keeping of dogs or cats to a total number greater than 5 shall be considered operating a kennel, in such cases provisions, current land use bylaw, etc. And underneath, in 8.2.0, no person or persons shall keep or harbor more than 3 dogs, and then it is now crossed out for 3 cats, aged 3 months or more at one and the same time in any house. So I'm just curious if we have any statistics in regards to animals at large or complaints about animals at large in regards to the number of dogs versus the number of cats. Because personal experience and community feedback would tell me that we much more often see cats at large and causing nuisance in people's gardens and so on and so forth than we do dogs. And yet, the way that this bylaw reads, we are increasing the number of cats someone is eligible to keep from 3 to 5. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that and that we have some statistics behind it.
To administration.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Anderson, to you, Councillor Lawyer, and to the rest of Council. I would have to provide statistics at a later date in specific numbers to cats and dogs at large. However, the reason for this implementation is because there has been a vast change of animal units allowed across the metro region when we conducted a review. And so this was a meeting of the middle in between those allowable units. They ranged for up to 7 from our review.
Okay, I'm going to come back to Councillor Laurie. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Our general manager, I think, almost was going to weigh in, but we'll let you follow up and then we'll come back. So go ahead, Councillor Laurie.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that. I don't know that I have any proposed thoughts at first reading here on a change to that. Based on what I've heard from residents in the past around pet ownership and our responsible pet ownership bylaw, the number one thing I heard was the inability to have more than 2 dogs. So I'm very happy to see that that's been addressed. But I'd be curious as to how the public could feel about the ability for somebody, a neighbor, et cetera, to own 5 cats. So just, like I said, I think that'll be some feedback I'll definitely be seeking between first and second and third readings.
Okay, and I didn't hear an additional question there, so I will look to other members of council if there are any additional. Councillor Meyer.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Page 74, 3.3.6, just some clarification. So I understand this is a service that we provide for the, what do you want to, reacquainting pets with their owners in an emergency. Just 3.3.6 mentions such other information as may be required with respect to the application. Sorry, I thought we were doing away with we don't need to register cats and dogs now. We just need a name tag on them. And so I'm just confused about the reference to an application there.
If I may, Councillor Meyer, and then turn it over to administration, 3.3.0 refers to this as information that may be provided to the town, but is not necessarily required to be provided. So I think an optional piece of information should residents and pet owners wish to provide that. But I will look to administration for any additional points.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, through you to Councillor Meyer and the rest of council. That is correct, Councillor Anderson. The intention is that they would no longer require licenses unless they were a vicious or a nuisance animal. However, if an animal owner would like to provide that information to the town to expedite the process of unification, we would still take that information.
Anything further, Councillor Meyer?
No, I think that's good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Laurie has a follow-up there.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. First of all, I think that that's a great piece of the bylaw, that residents can still provide that information to help with the reuniting, or like I said, in the emergency management aspect, if there happened to be an evacuation and animals were left behind and so on and so forth. I'm just wondering, in respect to the collection of the information, are we going to make it as simple as possible in residents and have say like an online form on our website or something like that where people can submit this information? Like, just curious from a process standpoint, you know, if it's an arduous process, if it's difficult, if they have to provide photocopies, et cetera, not many people are likely to do it if it's not mandatory. So just thinking from a simplicity is, you know, do we have a vision as to how we plan on collecting that data?
We'll look to administration.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Lori. We currently collect a lot of that information already under the current licensing requirements, so this would just simply be, we would continue to maintain that particular document. There'd be no fine, or sorry, no fee attached to that information coming forward to us. And again, as stated earlier, it's not a requirement. It's something that is left to the owner's discretion as to whether or not they want to provide that information for us.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate that. And I know we have our new enterprise program that's being rolled out. I know it's going to have many facets in respect to utilities and things like that, where we may actually have a portal that a resident can log into. And I'm hopeful that as we see that move forward, there's maybe an area in there that they can manage their pets. I think that would be fantastic if we had that. So appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer and Councillor Laurie for those. Going to look over to Councillor Pletchko.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, through to administration. I'm just wondering, as I read through this, there was a lot of things that come to my thought process, and one of them was, how do other communities handle the fact that you no longer have control or understanding of where a free pet is running around? How is that handled? So you got 3 dogs in your community that don't have a name tag on them anymore, and they're out running around. You get a phone call from the local resident that says, these dogs, how do you reconnect that with the pet owner where there is nothing in place that allows for us to be able to tell where that pet has come from?
All right, we'll look to administration.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Pletchko. So under the current bylaw, there's a licensing requirement, and we need specific information related to that. CPOs will go into that database and try and, based on the tag number, reunite the animal with the owner. Over a number of years, people have tattooed information in the ears of animals. They've also put chips in in animals. We have readers that will read that information. The tag, I think, is a bit of a step up in terms of saying what's your animal's name and what's the phone number related to the animal. There probably will be people that will not put a tag on the animal. We have some really good resources within our officer pool to find out who the owner of the animal is, and obviously through the bylaw there's fine opportunity for us, or education opportunity for us related to what the circumstances is, or the discretion that the officer would like to exhibit at that point. But certainly I think we're going to probably see a higher incident of us being able to put animals back in the care of people versus, or no difference than what we're currently doing with the licensing.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pletchko.
You made note that still has me a bit wondering when you said that there's a higher likelihood in other communities. Can you speak to what other communities are finding with a higher likelihood of being able to attach those animals to their ownership?
Administration.
Councillor Anderson through to Councillor Pletchko. I think through our research with across the Edmonton Metro region, we found, I don't want to give a specific, but there was a fair number of people that did not have licensing and a fair number that did have licensing. So it was a bit of a split between licensing or no licensing. Pet handling and ability to reunite pets with owners sometimes can be challenging, regardless of licensing or non-licensing. I think, as I mentioned earlier, with the tattooing and the chips, that's become easier for us to be able to identify, and we do carry that those tools in our cars, so that's helpful for us. Identifying tags, whether it be the number that we have under the current licensing system or a phone number, often that's quicker. Right now, we have to log into a database versus if we pick the animal off the street, it's got a phone number. We can certainly just call that number right away and we're instantly talking to someone, or leaving a message at least very quickly. Certainly with those that don't have a tag, we can look for the tattoos, we can look for the chips, and barring that, it would be an animal that's at large with no identifying opportunity, and we would take it to the pound and go through the process of trying to identify that animal back to the community. And it may be something that's come in from Swiss Grove or something from Parkland County. There is a process through the pound where they do advertise the animals that they have at the pound if we're not able to identify who the owner is. So there's a couple ways in which we try to identify who that pet might be owned by, and if not, after a period of time that animal is made available for adoption.
Councillor Pletchko.
Do have
Yep.
another question?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, not Ann. Through to administration again, when we were giving consideration to this PEP bylaw and not having any registration, was there any consideration given towards actually continuing on with the registration, similar to what we do with business licensing, where the business is required to register their business prior to the 1st of January at no fee? Was that any consideration? Is that something that was considered, or is any other community do anything like that?
To administration.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Anderson, to you, Councillor Pletchko, and the rest of council. There is no other community currently doing that. Another community does have a lifetime license. However, in the experience of enforcement officers, compliance is a challenge if it is a one-time or no-time fee. Residents may not feel compelled to comply with it if there is no driver to have them to do so. The other challenge is that we've identified with other communities that have less prescriptive licensing or lifetime fees is that the animal moves or it passes away or they give the pet away, and there's no consistency. So officers are often calling old records that they're not able to update frequently. So it was a balancing of the best way that we could expediently reunite pet animals with their pets, with their owners, pardon me.
Thank you, Councillor Pletchko. We'll look to Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I was kind of wondering how I was going to ask this question, but it's probably best just to sort of tell the story and then. Right. So a couple weeks ago, I was out for a jog with my dog, and there was a couple of dogs which, having read now through the bylaw here, I would call them more than nuisance animals. I would call them vicious animals, in that they came at my dog and chasing and the like. Anyhow, the point is, I was very glad that I was able to get through to someone at the town. It did take a few. Call one person, get a number, call another person until I reached a peace officer and was able to make my report to them, and of which they were dutifully aware of the dogs and had dealt with them in the past. Now, so my question is, reading this bylaw, the follow-up in terms of I dealt with a few different people, nobody actually collected my name. And if I'm reading this, I'm kind of actually sort of surprised, but to see that to have a dog declared vicious, it requires going to a justice. So if it goes before court, certainly witnesses and the like would be important. And like I say, no one took my name to document this. If this were to proceed to that level, I'm curious just if we have policy in how we deal with the complaints, and if we're following them, I guess is the question.
All right, we'll look to administration.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Anderson, to you, Councillor Meyer, and the rest of council. Our procedure typically is that if we received a complaint on our complaint line, so the 780-963-8650, that number is answered by our enforcement clerk Monday to Friday during business hours. In after hours, it is answered by the peace officers. Typically, our officers do ask for name, address, and phone number. From time to time, we have anonymous complainants that are not comfortable providing that information. So I would be interested in further conversation between you and I to determine what phone numbers it was that you were calling so that we can address that concern.
All right, thank you, Councillor Meyer. I'm going to look to council for a second time. Councillor Loynes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Meyer just kind of intrigued me with his question in regards to vicious animals and hearing that these particular dogs had been an issue in the past. At what point or maybe not what point, how many warnings or how many fines before further, trying to think of the word, action would be taken if an animal is considered a repeat offender for whatever it might be, viciousness or nuisance?
To administration.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, through you to Councillor Lyon and the rest of council. When we're dealing with a nuisance animal, we review how many occurrences we have. So in a situation where they're frequently at large, let's use that as an example, we would review how frequent in a time span we receive those types of complaints. We'd also be looking at what kind of cooperation we're receiving from the animal owner, whether they, for example, had a hole in the fence and we're asking them to repair that, and they're communicating with us on what the timelines in which they're going to do so. That level of cooperation is also considered in the files, in addition to how many warnings they've received, how many fines they've received. When it comes to a vicious animal, the Ian Dunbar scale is what we use to assess the level of bite, and then from there, fines are issued. Sometimes our complainants are not willing to provide a statement and do not want fines issued, so that becomes a little bit of a challenge for us from an enforcement perspective. But when it comes to vicious animals, the Ian Dunbar scale is used, and then we go forward with the justice procedure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Loyens, a follow-up?
And then just on the taking information from the person complaining, how is that information protected in order, for example, to avoid neighbor disputes? So Councillor Meyer's case, he was walking somewhere general, may or may not have been a neighbor, versus in our area, there's probably 30 dogs on our street alone. If somebody were to complain about that, neighbor dispute-wise, what would be the procedures?
To administration.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Anderson, through you to Councillor Lyons. We are bound by privacy laws. We do take steps to try to mitigate neighbor disputes, such as officers won't attend the residents. They'll try to phone them instead, just to try to protect some of that privacy. From time to time, we do get residents that ask us, they want to know who it was that complained. Of course, under privacy laws, we cannot disclose that information to them.
Thank you, Councillor Loyens. We'll look for a third time down the line. Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. This is just, again, a question of process. So don't see anything here advising of a public hearing or anything in respect to this bylaw, which is totally okay. I'm not foreseeing a public hearing being something necessary, but I am wondering, for the interim time before second reading comes forward, do we have any process or anything that we are following to look for some feedback? And so what comes to my head would be, distributing this information to the veterinary offices in the town of Stony Plain and to the pet stores in the town of Stony Plain, so that, maybe they've got either a little pamphlet or a QR code or something like that, or they can just talk to their customers about what's going on in the town and the changes that are happening, and that if they have any issues with that, who to reach out to. Is there anything that we're kind of doing to collect any of that feedback or look for any of that in the interim?
To administration.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, through to Councillor Laurie. Certainly, that's something we can consider. We definitely do have brochures that are related to pet ownership, and we would obviously have to update that with the adoption of third reading of this particular bylaw and some of the related changes. I think our relationship with our vets and other vendors specifically related to pet ownership is quite high with respect to they're keen and up to date on the information. Typically speaking, with bylaws of this nature, there's not a public hearing. Typically is through a land use type bylaw adjustments. We do have fantastic communications that go out after every council meeting that do highlight changes too. And we also do, depending on the breadth and how much is changing in a particular bylaw, we will work through communications for extra communications on top of that. So I do feel that through our relationships with our community partners, there's good information out there, and they do know who to phone back to or communicate or connect residents with should they not be able to answer the questions.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Any follow-up there?
Yeah, and thank you. I do appreciate that. And I just want to make sure, because I did notice the presentation touched a lot on the change in the licensing and the requirements, but it didn't necessarily touch a lot on the change in the animal units. And that one to me is something that residents definitely have a keen interest in. So just want to make sure that those columns that do go out do highlight that as a change, the number of animal units, the change from the limitation that was on there, so it's 5 or less, and then that change to a maximum of 3 dogs or a maximum of 5 cats, any combination thereof.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. I certainly appreciate any opportunity that we have to engage with the public on new or amended bylaws. The one thing that comes to mind in accessing sort of our pet specific community organizations and businesses is that it sort of concentrates our feedback into that particular segment of our population. And I know we're talking about a pet bylaw, but there are others who are not pet owners that certainly would have an invested interest in what's included here as well. And so with that, I would offer, any member of council can and will and would love to hear from you, any resident of the community that has feedback, good, bad, or ugly, on any bylaw that comes forward. And as this is only before us for first reading, I know our legislative services team would be thrilled to collect any feedback from residents in the form of communication dropped off at Town Hall or sent into the town legislative team at their email address, I believe is legislative@stonyplain.com. And so a number of ways for residents to engage in the conversation as it moves forward. I will look, I think I did third call already, but I'll look just for any final questions, comments. Okay, I will look to Councillor Laurie, please, for the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll move that Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2724/AC/25, a bylaw to regulate and control domestic animals within the corporate limits of the town of Stony Plain.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. We'll look to my colleagues on council with any debate and discussion. To Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one, and actually, apologies that it didn't come up sooner, because it was, as I said, within the corporate limits of the town of Stony Plain that this popped into my head, and it came to particularly the North Business Park and some areas of our community that aren't necessarily fully developed, where domesticated animals, as in a dog, may actually be used for security purposes. And so that is a practice that is used. The guard dogs are a thing, they do exist, but theoretically under this bylaw, would a guard dog be considered a vicious animal if a perpetrator were to, say, break into the yard of a business in the North Business Park and the guard dog did its job?
If I recall, there was, and
there a provision?
Well, there was a provision related to if it's private property and they enter the private property that I think the dog's permitted to chase. But I think if there was a bite or something that it would still fall under the bylaw, but I'll look to administration.
Maybe it's just framed as a question then. Is there a component of the current bylaw that allows for the use of dogs as security measures? And we'll stop it there.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Anderson, to you, Councillor Laurie, and the rest of council. This current bylaw does allow provisions for service animals and police dogs of jurisdiction, but speaking frankly, there is nothing in it that speaks to security purposes.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe appreciate that then as a piece of feedback. Maybe when we do see this come forward for second reading, having a provision that we could consider in regards to the use of a domesticated animal, a dog, as a security measure, whether it be limited to certain areas of town, such as the North Business Park, or whether it be allowed. I'm not sure. I don't know what exists out there. It's just, obviously it comes into my head because we do understand, we have heard from business owners that crime and trespassing and theft, et cetera, at our businesses is happening. And guard dogs are a tool that have been used in the past and likely would continue to be used. And so just want to make sure that we have a provision somewhere that touches on that.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Councillor Palechko, please.
It was a great question. I just want to add on to that. There's many farms and acreages within our community as well that have guard dogs. So you might want to consider that in the process as well, not just the industrial park, but those in the community that have the acreages and farms that have that for protection from the fine people that we have that come and take stuff they shouldn't be taking.
Thank you, Councillor Plechko. Given that we're only discussing first reading today, I'm going to look to administration. Is there, I believe this comes back, oh boy, June 23rd, is that, I believe at the next, June 23rd, I believe. Is there an opportunity here to bring back some considerations specific to guard or security dogs prior to second and third reading?
Yeah, Councillor Anderson, I can speak to that just quickly. I'm sure we can take a look and see what kind of practices are out there. Make some, have a internal kind of consideration as to what that could look like, and just provide some commentary to council on that specifically.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I see some head nods at the table, so thank you for providing that clarity. We'll look down the row again. Any discussion and debate on first reading? All right. And Councillor Laurie brought the motion forward, so we will call first reading to question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. I misspoke here, so I will apologize to those in the room and watching online. I had anticipated providing an opportunity, should a member of council wish, to look for a motion specific to item 8.1, or amending fees and charges bylaw, and that was specific to residential waste collection and the possibility of providing some options to residents. I believe, Councillor Laurie, you had brought that question forward. I'm just going to provide an opportunity here if you'd like to make a motion to the same.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess first and foremost, I'll just look to administration. The comments to my question were that something was being prepared. Would administration prefer a motion of council to provide some structure and guidance around that, or where are we sitting?
To administration.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak to it. We do have one drafted up. It's fairly straightforward and just specifically asks for a report on alternate waste options and sets a date of July 14th, 2025. And again, as council has mentioned, just acknowledging that we've made some major changes. We were able to reduce some costs, and this remains a dialogue in the community. So I think in this particular instance, it'd be good to have a motion just directing that.
Thank you. And then if I can just confirm, the meeting date reference would be a governance and priorities. So would it be for administration just to bring a report back for information, and then council would provide further guidance for a potential motion to be brought forward for a change, or would we want to change that to July 14th to actually have it on an RCM?
Sorry, I think I said July 14th, or I might have said something different, but it is coming back to a regular council meeting.
No, I think I had said July 7th at one point, so I think there's a little miscommunication there, but July 14th.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Chair, if you'd accept it, I'll move that Town Council direct administration to bring back a report on alternate waste options on July 14th, 2025.
Yeah, and we will accept that, and I will offer you an opportunity if you want to speak to that. I know it's been a dialogue around the table, but if you have any additional comments.
Thank you. The only dialogue I have actually is just the way it's worded. I'm concerned there may be, if a resident was watching, they may be thinking something like maybe we're bringing in our own incineration or anything like that. So rather than alternate waste options, maybe just add the word receptacle, alternate waste receptacle options, just to be very clear that we're not giving them a different alternative as to how to dispose of their waste, just a different container.
And if I may, as we're just making some brief amendments specific to residential, I think as well. I don't know if that needs to be stipulated here, but there are already some allowances for larger properties. And so residential is there, but I will look to you, to Councillor Laurie, for confirmation that that's acceptable.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And with no additional comments, I will look to other members of council for any discussion or debate on the motion before us. Didn't think there would be. I think this is one that we've all heard from the community, and I really appreciate administration providing an opportunity for this to come forward in a bit of a more formal way. With that being said, we will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. All right, so that gets us back on track. Thank you again for indulging me there. Let's proceed with our third and final bylaw of the evening, looking at item 8.3, the non-domestic animal bylaw, and we'll look to administration, please, to proceed with your presentation.
Good evening, Council. This is the item for the first reading for bylaw 2723 AC 25, the non-domesticated animal bylaw. So this bylaw consists of two main parts. One, the existing livestock regulations that are currently in the responsible pet ownership bylaw, including things such as horses, llamas, ostriches, and others, including information around animal units. These things are part of this bylaw here. And the second part is new regulations to allow for urban beekeeping and hen keeping in Stony Plain, including license requirements and basically setting up the program. So as part of this bylaw, we wanted to make sure that it had an ease of use and was very clear. To do so, we have the one responsible pet ownership bylaw that was the earlier item tonight. And this one here is the second one that regulates non-domesticated animals, again, for clear and intended purposes. In terms of those items or those provisions that were removed from the responsible pet ownership bylaw, these include definitions, animal unit allowance, permitting livestock keeping locations, enforcement, as well as penalties regarding livestock. At a high level, none of these items were really changed, or if they were to be succinct with the pet ownership bylaw as presented and proposed this evening. In terms of the addition of urban beekeeping and hen keeping, just some high-level aspects in terms of other municipalities in the area have already been doing this for several years, occasionally longer. This here would allow for hens and bees in areas outside of the future development district, which is currently where they're limited at this point, generally on working farm operations. These changes are supported by the Environmental Master Plan, the Environmental Stewardship Strategy, as well as the Urban Agricultural Plan that have been done in the last 5 or so years. And these programs are designed for small backyard activities for recreational and personal enjoyment. In terms of the licensing, I'm not going to go through the whole list that we have here, but again, it describes everything from fees for it, the need for training courses, mentorship, location of hives and coops, how many hens are allowed, how many hives are allowed, those sort of information, and then some reference to provincial regulations where relevant. In terms of setting up the program, again, it would restrict roosters, provides information on the care, the size, information on coops and hives, aspects such as disposing of the animals, what can be or cannot be allowed, include of no, and I'll highlight here, no commercial sale of the bee or hen products, and other things such as predator and rodent control and mitigation. As part of the bylaw process, there's enforcement implications. Again, we've taken these as a best practice. There was a fairly substantial jurisdictional review to kind of get a handle on other municipalities with both pilot projects and established programs. Education-wise, following a lot of our standard processes, we would have information on the website, provide some additional information that could be provided in a guideline for applicants. And then just to highlight it for clarity, the effective date for this bylaw would be upon council giving it third reading. However, both the beekeeping and hen keeping are intended to be effective January 1st, 2026 to ensure administration has time to properly set up the program, establish guides, and so forth. In terms of the next steps, again, third and second reading are scheduled for June 23rd, pending council approval. If so, council would be able to adopt it at their discretion on June 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation this evening. Certainly one that we hear about often. In fact, about a week ago, there was a post saying, who do we talk to about reviving the option of urban farming specific to hens? And so very timely that this is coming into chambers today. I will look to council with any questions for clarity and understanding. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just wondering if administration could speak to bylaw enforcement and the education that they must have received to be able to regulate this.
To administration.
So through the through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Meyer and all of council, the process in terms of a mentorship and a course, again, my understanding is there is courses across the province that are available for individuals to take to learn about either beekeeping or hen keeping. And in terms of mentorship, it would be required to find someone who already does this practice, often in a rural area perhaps, but then to mentor with them to learn about it. If there's more questions, I can talk more internally and provide you some comments.
Councillor Meyer.
Sorry, maybe I was specifically wanted to know how our enforcement of the bylaw would be and the training that our bylaw enforcement would have to have received. Or I'm assuming.
Through Councillor Henderson to Councillor Meyer and all of council. In terms of the enforcement, a lot of the enforcement aspects for a bylaw like this are done often through private means. So again, many of our inquiries with other municipalities, there are limited to no major concerns. A lot of the concerns that are raised are addressed directly by talking to the landowner, providing some education there. This program as set up would actually be handled directly by planning and development staff, similar to a development concern. Our staff would go out, talk to the individual, find out what those concerns are, work with them to try to address it. In terms of enforcement, it would only be if there's a major implication such as a ticket or an issuance of an order that would be required, that the enforcement would be directly brought into this. And there are certain service providers that do provide some means to deal with more of extreme enforcement requirements.
Thank you, and I'll look to the General Manager of Community and Protective Services for additional comments.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, through to Councillor Meyer. Certainly, if this bylaw is adopted by council, our CPO team would reach out to other communities that have this particular bylaw in motion already and understand exactly what their role is related to. And I think what you're trying to get at is if someone's not in compliance and we have to take a bee hive or a chicken coop away from the particular residence, what happens with the animals related to that particular removal. So certainly there's more that we will have to do in order to investigate what that looks like. But the manager of planning infrastructure planning is certainly correct with respect to there would be outside agencies that would be working with to assist us in the removal of those particular animals, as it's not. We can't take chickens over to the Parkland County Animal Control Center because they don't have provisions for that at this time. So we definitely would be working with other agencies in the province to assist us with the housing of these particular bees and hens if we were have to go to that step of removing from the resident.
Councillor Meyer, does that answer the question? Okay, thank you. Councillor Pletchko, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Anderson, through to administration. I'm going to refer to page 109 of 134, 4.0, animal units. Can you clarify through this, the way I read this, you would require 2 acres to be able to have anything within our community? 0.81 hectares to 1.21 hectares allows you 1 unit.
So I think, Councillor Pletchko, there is the list just above that defines 1 animal unit, 1 horse, donkey, 2 colts, and so on.
I understand that.
Okay.
But what I'm asking for is clarifications because chickens are mentioned in here. ducks, there's a mass of what is allowed and what is not. Is it per hectare, or is it, because further down in there you go to 5 + 2 = 7 total animal units?
Okay, to administration.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Paleckko and all of council. I guess the key aspect of this is, as far as I'm aware, is that this information here is pertaining to future development districts as opposed to chickens that would be within urban areas. So in terms of the maximum number allowed, it would follow, as it indicates here, that you could have up to 15 chickens on a rural area in this district, by which most of these areas, or they would have to have a minimum of 2 hectares or 0.8 hectares of land to be allowed to have any. Based on that being the smallest area to have one animal unit. So again, it would be based upon the overall area of that parcel of land. And then this indicates that they could have one unit, one type of the various units listed or the various animals listed in 4.1.0.
We'll go back to Councillor Paleckko.
So are you coming from the 5 + 2, so after 13 acres, you're an additional 2 animals?
So I think, if I may, the 13's referring to the 5 animal units for 10 acres. And then to get to 13, it's an additional 3, which is an additional 2 animal units. So 5 animal units for the first 10. The additional 2 animal units for the additional 3 acres would result in the number of 7 total animal units. So if we were 14 acres, it would be 5 + 3.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Paleckko and all of council. Again, I don't know exactly, okay, bear with me for a second here. These are some of the regulations, again, that are not necessarily changing. So I can do my best here to do the math, but in essence, it looks like you always round down to the nearest amount, and that because you have an area that is 5 hectares or more, and I don't know, this is something I'm going to have to look at unless I'll pass it off to
the general manager.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Paleckko, certainly your explanation is correct. It's a combination of, because the chart only goes to that 4.05 hectares. The chart could go on forever in the number of animal counts. So basically it's implying that 5 is the max under this particular chart. In order to achieve 9, you would have to have the 4.05 hectares plus 2.30 hectares, which would be a total of 6.8 hectares for that number of animal units to be permissive in.
Thank you, Councillor Paleckko.
So I'm going to take this one step further then. I've been asked this a couple of times. I obviously live in the rural portion of it, and there's a number of people out in our neck of the woods. So when you're talking 5 animal units, you talk about 20 rabbits, 10 ducks, 15 chickens, 2 elk, 1 deer. Can you help me to understand what that looks like? Like if you're talking 15 chickens, that's more than one unit.
To administration.
Councillor Anderson, through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Paleckko. So I think for further clarity, if you look at 4.0.0 on page 109, it does speak specifically to animal units, and it says for the purpose of the bylaw under 4.1.0, 1 animal unit equals. So the language would be 1 animal unit could be 15 chickens, could be 10 ducks, turkeys, pheasants, geese, or similar fowl. If I owned a property of 4.05 hectares, I'm allowed 5 animal units. So in essence, I could have 50 ducks, turkeys, pheasants on my property under that particular land size. So the one unit is based on 4.1 to 4.11. Each of those are considered a single animal unit, regardless of the number of units stated in the line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palechko. I believe, was it Councillor Laurie I think I had up next?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions that have popped up. The first one is both the hen schedule and the bee schedule have provisions that talk about commercial sale. It appears in 2.4, I think, of both bylaws, one on page 113, one on page 117. It occurs in 4.3.1 and 4.3.2 of the chickens and 4.3.0 for the bees. I'm just wondering if you can help me understand a little bit more in respect to the commercial sale aspect. And so, for instance, my mind kind of goes to neighbor relationships. And so, because this is a license program and we're probably limiting the number of license, the likelihood of having, next door neighbors that both have a license, probably pretty minimal, if even at all going to be allowed. So does that mean that the neighbor who has the chickens then would not be allowed to sell the eggs to their neighbor? Or are we talking like production level? We have a farmer's market here in town. Would they be allowed to take the eggs or the bee products to the farmer's market? In bees, it gets even more complicated because you go all the way through to things like beeswax, and I would challenge the way that it's worded, any other products derived from bees. Well, if a bee pollinates a vegetable in somebody's garden, does that now make it ineligible to sell? So just wondering if you can kind of flush that out a little bit for me.
To administration.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Laurie and all of Council. The restriction on selling products that comes from either the hens or the bees is strictly there to ensure that, again, the size of the operation is limited, and in the sense that we're not trying to have a commercial business created by that. Now, the way I look at this is it doesn't mean that the landowner or the resident can't provide or give their produce to a neighbor or honey or something like that, but it's there to restrict the fact that it's not supposed to be a financial business that is run out of your home or on your property. This is intended to be small scale, local, for yourself, your immediate family. And again, you could provide this to others, but the intention is not to make a scalable business out of this, given that it is on residential property.
Yeah, I think, so I would just weigh in a little bit there too, Councillor Anderson, through the rest of council. I think the intent here is, as the manager has indicated, these are also provisions that can act as a fail-safe in the event, and I would say probably low likelihood event that someone was trying to scale up their urban hen keeping and so on to a point where it was becoming a commercial operation. I guess I'll speak freely. If someone's going to sell a little bit at their garage sale or, to their neighbor or, that sort of scope, I don't expect we're going to be out actively looking for that. If it was brought to our attention that there's a scale and scope and a magnitude to it, then we would probably have to look into it. And there's a clause that says we could police it that way.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I think where I'm challenged in that thinking, though, is that we have standards in place of the maximum size of the operation. In the chickens, it's a minimum of 2, a maximum of 6. In the bees, it's 1 hive with a maximum of 6 supers. So I'm a little bit challenged because when I think of urban agriculture, we have people within town limits who have gardens that are big enough that they produce more than they themselves, and they may sell that product. We have people who may have a primary occupation, say in construction, and they may use their leftover materials to make, signs that people put up on their front porches and things like that. They're able to sell that. They're able to do that. I'm really challenged. I do understand the logic perspective of not allowing somebody to scale an operation of hen keeping or beekeeping to a size in which it would become detrimental, as we have, in our land use bylaws when it comes to minor home occupations and major home occupations. And this is where I'm challenged, because I think you're creating a restriction. When these came through the urban agriculture plan, a lot of it was surrounded by, self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency isn't just self-provision. So for instance, if you're keeping bees and a product of that bees is beeswax, why should you not be allowed to use that beeswax to be to be independent? Whether you're creating candles or whether you're creating a lip balm or whatever it is that you're able to create within the confines of the size in which we are stating in the bylaw. And that's, I think, where I'm having a struggle, because we do restrict the size. We do say it cannot be larger than this. So why are we restricting what they're able to do with the size that we're allowing?
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. I certainly appreciate the sentiment there. I should clarify, we're looking for questions of clarity and understanding, and so I'm going to actually pass on your comments for now, and we'll withhold that commentary till we get to the debate part of this. So thank you for bringing that forward, but we'll get through the questions and clarity here first. Looking to my colleagues on council, are there any other questions? Okay, I do have one. Looking at. Oh, see, now I lost my spot. So I believe it was page 116, but I'll give you the sentiment and I'll see if I can find the specific page here in a second. But reading that someone who has a chicken coop, that coop would be considered an accessory development unit on that particular property. And so just looking for clarity, would that impact their ability to have, for example, a secondary suite on that property as well?
Through Councillor Anderson to all of council and himself. No, I think is the simple answer. Again, we are looking at these as an additional secondary thing. It's not something that's prohibited under the land use bylaw, so it would interact, I guess, parallel to that, and would not create a conflict there. So this would be something that would be allowed unless there's other parameters such as, lot coverage or something like that that you might go over and need a variance or something like that. But no, I would not say it would restrict that.
So I appreciate that example there. So would the land area taken up by the coop and the run be calculated into... Okay, my apologies. Calculated into the land coverage when we're looking at approving additional ADUs?
Through Councillor Anderson to all of council, it is something that if it was put on a site plan, for example, could be considered. Often smaller items such as coops and sheds of this size may not be counted though. However, again, it depends on the information that's received. Again, if it is appearing as a structure on a lot, it would be considered as part of the lot coverage.
Thank you for that. I'll turn it over to Councillor Laurie for another question.
Thank you. Just two other quick questions on administration. The first one I think probably can just be more a comment. So we've got on page 116, 4.3.2, slaughter any hen on the lot within town boundaries. No person who holds the urban hen keeping license shall slaughter any hen on the lot or within town boundaries. Just when I read the or within town boundaries, the typical practice of a hen that stops laying, if you have that hen for the provision of eggs, is that hen be slaughtered. With the way this is said, if we had an appropriate butcher here in town, that would seem to prevent them from allowing that hen to be slaughtered at the butcher. So I'm just wondering if there's either a wording change or something that can be done. Again, I don't need an answer on that. That's just commentary to go back that administration can maybe address before this comes forward for second reading. The question that I do have is respect to 5.4.0 on the bees portion, which is 119, page 119. And its hives must be located a minimum of 25 meters from a public place. But when I look in the definitions section of the bylaw, I do not see a definition of a public place. And so I'm wondering if we have a definition for what is meant by public place in this, because previous it talks about pedestrian walkways, which to me would be a public place, but then it states it's only to be located 3 meters from the lot line adjacent to the pedestrian walkway. And it doesn't state if there's a variance in that based on how far away that pedestrian walkway is from the lot line. So if we're talking about a municipal sidewalk, that traditionally is either on the property or directly adjacent to it. If we have a trail, for example, I think of my community where I live in Brookview, we have homes that have a trail right behind their lot line, but that trail varies anywhere from 1 meter from the lot line to probably 20 meters in different areas. So in those two things, I'm just a little confused. I don't know if there's a confliction there. I don't know if we need a better definition of public place or what we need to think about there.
We'll look to administration for some comments there, specific to a definition of a public place, if we can have some clarity.
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Laurie and all of Council. This might be a little bit of an oversight. We might look into it more. I did check, and again, we do have the term park, which means public space, not public place necessarily. But I think in terms of this, it was designed to be slightly more broad.
Sorry, if I can just interrupt, on page 108, public place means any location that is open or accessible to the general public, including and not limited to public buildings, schools, churches, playgrounds, sports fields, open spaces, parks, playgrounds, or hospitals.
Councillor Anderson, just comment. So there is an inclusion of a public place in the beginning of the bylaw, and then as the appendixes have some of add-on definitions or whatever. But certainly we could just explore the interaction there, ensure that it carries forward from the bylaw into the appendixes. We can just do a bit of homework on that for sure.
My only comment is playground is listed twice.
So, and if I may then, just a general comment, based on lot sizing within the municipality, if we're talking that public place does apply to any open space, open and accessible to the general public, parks, open spaces, playgrounds, etc. Again, any 25 meters is a very large distance. And I struggle to think of many properties that exist within the town of Stony Plain that would not be 25 meters from an open space within municipal property.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. I believe administration has taken that into consideration and will bring something back for second reading, but just some final thoughts on that specific point to the general manager, or sorry, to administration.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Just to address one of the other questions, again, through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Laurie, in terms of the earlier question or comments, that's related to the individual who's the license holder doing the slaughtering, not an area in town that is an arbitor or something like that that actually has that through a licensed means. It's the licensee or license holder who's not able to do that on their property or anywhere else in town. However, if it's given over to someone who is licensed, they can do that within town.
Further follow-up there, Councillor Laurie?
No, again, at this time, majority of this would be commentary for feedback prior to second reading.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lyons, you did have a couple thoughts there. Was there anything in addition you wanted to add? Okay. We're good. I do have a couple of questions. These come from a resident who has expressed some significant interest in participating should this pass third reading later this year. And so one was an offer of educational support, has, it sounds like, significant background in care of animals and so on. And so the question there for administration, we saw in the presentation that there would be some mentorship provided and such. Should a resident feel like they have the appropriate skills, how would they connect with the town to potentially be a part of that mentorship program?
Through Councillor Anderson to all of council. Details on the mentorship program are one of those areas that we would be looking for more exploration as we work through the actual program creation. So this is one area I know that we have reached out to other municipalities in terms of understanding theirs. I don't have those details with me present, but it is something we can bring back to if this is brought to council at a later date for second and third reading with more information on what that would be, at least at the preliminary conceptual level.
Yeah, certainly, and I appreciate that. The offer did extend to developing program and whatnot, and so with administration's permission, perhaps I will pass on her contact information, and when you get to a place where you're looking to develop that further, maybe it's a point of contact that we can look to.
That would be welcomed.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Councillor Palechko.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Through to administration, I'm just wondering, my understanding is beekeeping must be registered within the province of Alberta, and is that something that we need to be specific with in our bylaw?
Through Councillor Anderson to Councillor Palechko and all of council, given that it's a provincial jurisdiction, this would be something that would complement that provincial requirement. So it's not something that we need to specify within our bylaw. It is something that we probably look for, but it's not necessarily something we would have to look for. It is something that they would have to make sure they meet the provincial regulation as well as the municipal regulation.
Thank you, Councillor Palechko. Do have one more question. It's around the idea of sort of a portable or movable space, I guess, for the chickens. Now, I'm looking at page 116 of our bylaw. 5.0.0 specifies coop requirements, and it looks like constructed, securely attached. The coop run must be attached to the coop, and so very little room there for something movable. What the context of that was sort of a fully enclosed space that would meet those requirements, but that a resident could, move to put over an anthill in the backyard, or sort of move around to, sort of freely graze without wearing down certain parts of the yard. So it wouldn't be to replace one of the requirements that were here, but just wondering if there's an opportunity there for an additional component of a movable coop space, if you will.
Through Councillor Anderson to all of council, there is no restriction on having a mobile coop, so to speak. I know I've actually had personal experience with this. When I was in New Brunswick, an individual had a mobile coop on wheels. They moved it or towed it kind of every once in a while, just to make sure that it kind of fertilized different parts of the lawn.
So certainly nothing that would prohibit that from happening here, and it sounds like something that residents would be able to pursue should they choose if this moves forward.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Look down the table one final time here. Okay, just a reminder at this point that we are only looking for first reading this evening on this particular bylaw, and I will look to Councillor Palechko to put that motion on the floor, please.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. The Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2723/AC/25, a bylaw to regulate the keeping of non-domestic animals within the corporate limits of the town of Stony Plain.
Thank you, Councillor Palechko. With the motion on the floor, I will open it up to my colleagues on council for debate and discussion, and we will start with Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, I had quite a few comments in there. I think probably the two items of biggest concern, number one is that 5.4 within the beekeeping bylaw where it states the public spaces and the 25-meter requirement. When I read through, it seems like our intention is, I think it was 3 meters if there was no fence, or there has to be a minimum 1.8 meter fence for a traditional property. And again, as I said, like 25 meters, you're talking about 75 feet or so from any type of a public space. It seems like a lot. And I again, just going through and just thinking, if a municipal sidewalk is considered a public space, are there many residents in town who would have 75 meters clear in all directions, or 75 feet, sorry, 25 meters clear in all directions from a hive on their property to enable them to put that hive there? So that's something that definitely I'm looking for some clarity and potentially understanding the purpose behind that provision in comparison to some of the other provisions and in comparison to some of the other urban beekeeping bylaws that I've looked at. Outside of that then would be respect to the commercial sale aspect. Again, I fully understand and respect administration's approach of not wanting this provision to allow somebody to upscale an operation to a level that is untenable for a public lot. That completely makes sense. But even though, as the CAO stated, well, we wouldn't go after somebody for selling eggs at their garage sale, let's say. Well, first and foremost, depending on whether you have the proper licenses or such from Alberta Health Services, you probably shouldn't be selling eggs at your garage sale anyways. But I don't think if somebody, for instance, had a beehive in their yard in Stony Plain and wanted to get the appropriate license to have a table at our farmers market, they should be forbade from selling some products that they're able to create from the beehive that they have worked very hard on and probably spent a fair amount of money on. If it's a matter of they're making some candles or some lip balms or things like that, to forbade them from selling those products as a result of their hobby, as a result of this being in their yard, I think is a bit of overreach. Again, understanding that we're trying to prevent it from becoming a commercial operation. We are trying to, manage this in many levels. We do have business licenses as well when it comes to minor and major home occupations. Maybe we have to consider a provision in our business licensing to say that if you have a beekeeping license if you have a bee license within the town of Stony Plain or a hen license within the town of Stony Plain, you must also have the business license and comply with this provision of the business license in order to sell the products that are created from that. So I think there's some work to be done there. I think there's some things that maybe need to be flushed out. I think to straight up deny the person keeping the hens or keeping the bees the ability to sell that product is maybe a bit of overreach. I think there's a way that we can achieve what we're trying to in making sure that it doesn't become a larger commercial upscaled operation and still allowing them to create self-sufficiency, not just in the provision of food, but in the provision of the ability to make goods which they may exchange for money.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. I didn't hear a specific question there, so I'm thinking these are feedback for second and third reading. But it does raise a couple of questions. First one, I'm not a farmer, obviously, but how many eggs could a collection of 6 hens realistically lay in a week's time, for example?
Through Councillor Anderson, through all of council, or to all of council. I do not have that information handy here. It is something that we can look into, I'll say, if this is brought back.
Thank you for that. We have some colleagues in the room that do have plots of land with some animals, and I'm wondering if they have any thoughts on what that might be. My wonder is, how much reasonably, Councillor Pletchko, you have an answer there?
So there's actually a statistic out there. It's 3 to 7 eggs per week is what a hen can lay.
Per hen?
Per hen.
For one. So we're looking, 3 times 6, 18, so a dozen and a half. And so a pretty small, certainly, margin there. At what point, so the second question, would something like a business license kick in? Should there be consideration here to sell, let's go with bees, honey, beeswax, lip balm, at what point do we already have a requirement for a resident to need to pursue a business license?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, and maybe I'll provide just a bit of perspective and a response in the notion that we're going to take this feedback and put some further thought to it. I think we'll have to spend a bit of time and try to strike a balance between, I think as our manager was indicating, the general intent is to allow some small scale urban farming, likely for personal use kind of perspective. But I do wish to, I would acknowledge, information regarding, is that restricted by how many or the small lot sizes or so on and so forth? That may move us away from the thinking of, barring any commercial sales or so on and so forth. I think I would just put it as this is how the system works. We came forward with some information that we believe to be good. Council's brought up some pretty good questions and some good perspective there, and we will take that away and see if we can't come back with something along these lines anyway that we could say is better.
To be continued. So thank you for that. Going to go down the line to Councillor Paleckko.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Anderson. Just a couple of comments. I think it's great that this has come forward. It's long past due, and it's something that our community has been asking for a long time, and it truly is a good step in getting things started. There is a few things that do have concern, like the distance that it takes to a public. I'm looking forward to see what that really truly looks like. I'm not so concerned with the effect that it would have to be able to sell to begin with. I think that's another step that we could take down the road. However, it's a good option for topic. And I think, the B side of it as well, when people start to look into it, I think they're going to really realize that there's a lot more to beekeeping than it is just having 2 hives in your yard. It's fairly regulated, and you have to be very cautious as to what you do. It's well watched within that community. I know several people that produce honey, and there's somebody around watching you pretty close. So it's for those that want to do it, I think it's a great opportunity, and we've got a great start to it. So I look forward to any further information that administration brings back to us for knowledge and us be able to make a proper decision on both these. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paleckko. Any further debate or discussion? All right, so no debate or discussion necessarily, but just a quick question. I know the answer to this, but just for the peace of mind of residents, whenever the urban farming and hens come up, there's always the concern about the rooster that makes all sorts of noise. And so just a very brief comment from administration, are roosters permitted if this moves forward?
Through Councillor Anderson to all of council, roosters are not allowed.
Perfect.
As for this program.
Thank you for that. One final time, debate and discussion. Okay, seeing none. Before I call this to question, I did put this out earlier, but want to remind the public that we are open and want your feedback on the items discussed during today's meeting, and I certainly have had several, dare I say many even, conversations with residents over the last couple of weeks specific to chickens or hens and bees. And so please reach out to any member of council or take a few minutes, put your thoughts into writing and send it into the town or legislative services team, and that will all be captured, and that will come forward to council prior to second and third reading. With that, the motion on the floor, no, I don't believe I did. Councillor Paleckko, I had you with the motion, is to give first reading to the bylaw, and I will call that to question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. We have no business items on the agenda this evening, which takes us down to council discussion, and we'll start to my left with Councillor Paleckko.
Nothing this evening. Thank you for chairing, though.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity. Councillor Loynes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I just wanted to say how great it was the last couple days we got to spend with our delegation, and I'll just say from Hokkaido in general, because we had both our twin sister city from Chicowie and the twin sister city for Whitecourt here. And it had been a very busy 4 days from my standpoint. I know it was very busy on our administration side, so thank you to all of them for making this possible. It was great to spend time with them and be able to celebrate 40 years with them and 45 years for the Alberta province and Hokkaido twin sister as well. I also wanted to mention that Councillor Laurie and I got to attend the Navy League of Stony Plains annual inspection on Sunday. There was 24 young men and women aging 9 to 12, and they got to show us all what they had learned over the year and show us all their parade around and march passes, and it was a pleasure to be there as a reviewing officer on behalf of the town. They actually ended up giving us a very pretty paddle that was hand-wrapped by one of their lieutenants that I will look forward to giving to our town manager, who I will sure will find a place for it. Other than that, Farmers' Day is this weekend. So hope to see as many residents as we can at the pancake breakfast and the parade. And a note about the pancake breakfast, it is at Glen Hall Arena, not Pioneer Museum. And other than that, I think that's all for me.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. I'll look to Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, on the heels of pancake, the mayor's pancake, I will be very happily serving pancakes, and then I will also be very happily rushing off to my daughter's cap and gown graduation ceremony. So, I won't be joining everybody for the parade, and I'll be very sad to miss out on that. But like I say, very proud father coming up this weekend. So that's where I'll be. But I do have a question to administration. If administration maybe could provide some commentary in regards to Ledcor's street sweeping efforts. I'm just curious if we're satisfied with the service we're providing.
I love that you phrase that as a question. Are we, if we, to administration, please.
Thank you. I can provide some commentary response there. So for clarity too, just to make sure we're all speaking the same thing. So Highway 779 is under provincial jurisdiction, and Ledcor is the, I guess I'll just say the operations arm contractor responsible for maintenance and operations of 779 as well as 628 and Highway 16A within the town of Stony Plain. I know our street sweeping program had kicked off and was in action, I'll say a couple weeks ago for sure, if not a bit more. And we were, as well as I'm sure council and members of the committee, we were not excited that they were not working on 779 in a timely manner. So we did reach out and provide that concern to in this case, Ledcor. And I believe they got started last week, I believe. I don't want to quote an exact date or time, but I know they started to take some action there. To date, I think the other thing too, to be clear for council, we are not responsible for, or are we able to direct their operational ways, the way they go about doing things. I will say what I noticed when I came by and had a look at the way they were doing things, I had a bit of a head scratcher myself because I know that we have done it in the past and it was done in what I believe to be frankly a more efficient manner. But that's not our place or not our ability to direct the manner in which they go about their operations. So if I can get back to the original question, I guess, I would say administratively, we have reached out. We were not satisfied in the timeliness. We will have to take a look at the results of what they have done. But I think we were challenged by what we have seen so far. But I would just ask for maybe a little bit of time to make sure we get the opportunity to take a good hard look and have some feedback for Ledcor there. Thank you for the question. I'll just stop there, and if there's follow-up, I can speak to that too.
I do appreciate Councillor Meyer bringing that forward, and I would just add on not just the street sweeping, but the potholes. Some have been filled, some have not, and so as administration's reaching out, please follow up on that piece as well. Anything else, Councillor Meyer? All right, over to Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yeah, I will reiterate the state of all the local highways that the province is responsible for at this point in time is not at the level I would expect, and not at the level we have previously experienced from the province. The same is true in the shoulders of both 16, 16A. I'm not sure 627, 628 in the area at this point in time as to whether the gravel is still piled up on the shoulders there as it is on the ones that come through town here. But yes, absolutely. I have been watching since the 22nd, which is when their sign went up, which the first action that they took was to say they were starting on the 22nd, but the only action I saw was actually the sign going up. So we are, 4 days into it, and again, not that we can direct their actions, but I think if our town crews were to clear like that in our residential neighborhoods, we would have some very angry phone calls from residents. So I'm hopeful that the town can reach out to Alberta Transportation, maybe not just the contractor themselves, and see about what we can do in regards to the service the town is receiving on those provincial highways. I know we have mentioned many times before to the province that we would be more than happy on an appropriate cost share to take over some of those services to provide adequate and appropriate services to our residents, and maybe the province would like to revisit that if we can provide a better quality service than what they're able to do for us. Outside of that, I'd definitely like to highlight, again, some of the positive events that we've had in town. We had the receipt of the Local Growth and Sustainability Grant that was announced last week, which is fantastic for our Old Town South and the Brickyard area for a lot of the new housing development that's going on, as well as the additional development of our recreation center, the proposed future school site, the existing new school site, and other recreation amenities that will go in the area. So it was fantastic to have the town receive those dollars and move forward with that. Again, we did have the Hokkaido celebration that we attended, members of council attended on Friday afternoon at Government House with the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta and delegation from both Hokkaido and Shikowie. We had the Alberta-Japan Twin Municipalities Association conference here in the town of Stony Plain, where we very proudly, and it was very well done from our administration and our residents that presented, we very proudly showed off our exchange program and our programs with Shikowie. And to be honest, out of all the twin municipalities, I think hands down we have the absolute best twinning relationship and best twinning program, and we are the envy of many communities. And I strongly encourage our colleagues on different municipal councils that maybe don't have the program directly under them, that maybe run that program through their friendship society. They should take the time to learn a bit more about that program, and they should really look to support that program in any way that they can, because it's invaluable to the residents in the community. We hear it time and time and time again from our residents how amazing the experiences are that they receive through that twinning relationship. And we heard countless times over this past week about how other municipalities wish that they had that same experience. And so, it was fantastic for us to get to showcase that opportunity. Kind of went a little bit quietly, but I know I've heard a couple of people mention how excited they are to see the bird scooters coming to Stony Plain. I'm looking forward to that. I think the release said they'll be here in about 2 weeks. I expect we'll probably see some growing pains with that, but the addition of another active transportation option in the community is fantastic, especially with our adjoining trails with the city of Spruce Grove. I envision our downtown Thursdays, our summer sessions, and those type of things to maybe see a bit of an influx of those devices as people travel from different areas within Stony Plain and Spruce Grove to get to those events. So really interested to see how that pilot goes this summer. The last thing I did want to ask is just through you, Mr. Chair, to administration. Still getting a lot of calls and emails in regards to the latest property tax notices that have gone out and the breakdown. The feedback is constantly essentially that what have you done to my taxes? Why have you raised our taxes so high? We know that there are many components to that tax. I do believe that the information that we have out there and the information that was included with the tax notices was very well done. I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity maybe for us to increase the communications a little bit, again, to explain all of the differences that we're seeing on the municipal tax bill, because it seems like there's a fair amount of residents that are still missing that message.
To administration.
Yeah, you're, to Councillor Anderson and Councillor Laurie, the rest of council, yeah, I know just in some of our own monitoring, starting to see some correction relating to the provincial education property tax seems to have been getting some concerns drawn specifically to it. So I think that provides a little bit of perspective that the way the information was sent out was getting a bit of traction. You know, to see as time goes by how that measures out, so to speak. Specifically on, again, I'll say I'm not personally aware, I don't think we're aware as to what is exactly scheduled over the course of the next couple of weeks or so. But we can take a look at that, see what's coming out there, as well as what else is being scheduled out. I know that, opportunity this evening to lower some rates on the utility side. So I know we'll be working that, and I know we have some other announcements that we'll have tracking through the communications timing. So we could take a look at it, but we'll just manage it accordingly as it relates to other things as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. And just to pick up on that briefly, I had a similar note, and the wonder was if there's room there for some sort of like visual media. We sort of consume short clips and videos and that sort of thing quite readily, and text-based messaging sometimes for some feels a little bit onerous, and we want it to be delivered in a different method. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity there to expand the way that we communicate some of those key messages. With that being said, pick up on Councillor Loynes' comment, and Councillor Laurie, I believe, mentioned it as well. This weekend, nothing short of phenomenal, and I don't want that word to be used lightly, but it was an absolute privilege to welcome Mayor Key and his delegation of elected officials, town staff, and residents to the town of Stony Plain, but not just. Certainly we welcome delegates from across Alberta and from the government of Alberta and Hokkaido as well, and number of council members, both past and present, that have supported the program over the years. Former Mayor Donner Cowan was there. Former Councillor Paul McCann was involved. Every council member that was available this weekend was involved as well. And certainly we had the opportunity to celebrate the past few decades of success through our Shikawi Twin Municipality Partnership. But we also had an opportunity to look to the next few decades into the future and what that program holds for us as a municipality and the residents who call this area home. And so I truly mean phenomenal weekend with our very special guests. With that being said, I do have one quick question specific to Farmers Days. Last year, don't remember the timing of it. We did end up with some planters and barriers along 50th Street, extending from about 44th Avenue to 41st Avenue, where the sidewalk and the roadway sort of snake back and touch in a number of different spots. We heard from several residents how they felt those barriers provided a safer, more comfortable, enjoyable, leisurely walk into Heritage Park for the Farmers Day festivities and back home. My last drive down 50th Street, I did not see them yet. Farmers Day is coming up here in a few days. Just wondering if administration can comment if we can expect to see those barriers in place before Farmers Day.
Yeah, thank you, excuse me, Councillor Anderson, I appreciate that question. So I think, as I understand, in quick dialogue with some of our staff, I believe we're able to get the planters that you're referring to on Main Street out in time, so to speak, for Farmers' Days. I think we were ordering flowers. I think we were worried about the hail potentially this afternoon, so the flowers aren't arriving till tomorrow. So as I understand, the planters you're speaking about and some of our hanging baskets and so on and so forth should be moving out into the community this particular week. So.
Oh, awesome, and that's great to hear, and I know the safety and security of our residents and visitors is top of mind, and appreciate staff's willingness to get that out. With that, thank you again to administration for all of your work always, but particular to the last couple of days, creating tremendously memorable experiences for our guests, but also for our own residents and our council. So thank you for that. With that, we are adjourned.